Ta-da. Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, it's still the beginning of the year. We're on the fourth day of the year, and isn't it about time that you declutter your life, your house? This is how you start the new year off right. So if you need help doing that, I have today the most organized man in America who will tell you how to do it, inspire you how to do it, and he's even offering an almost free challenge. I mean, it's like $1, I think, or something like that, that will really set you into the full experience of how you can do this. And the thing is, it's like eating junk food. It tastes really good, but it really makes you feel really bad. And it might be comfortable to live in a house that's, messy and stuff, but man, once you do it, you're going to love it. And he's going to show you how. Please welcome Andrew Mellen. Nice to see you again.
You, Chef AJ, and hey, everybody. Great to be with you all on this, beginning of the new year. It's a great opportunity for us.
Absolutely. Aren't you in some exotic country now?
I am in an exotic country called Bali.
Wow. What are you doing there? I mean, do they need decluttering help in Bali too?
Not from me. I mean, there's definitely a plastic trash problem here. I mean, it's a different kind of culture. But what I'm doing most specifically is I am participating in a 7-day Ayurvedic panchakarma treatment. That's what I'm doing this week. So I'm when we wrap up this conversation, I'm going to go meet with my Ayurvedic doctor and do the treatments for the day. So
that sounds exotic and wonderful.
Yeah, it's really quite a wonderful way to start the new year off for me. So that particularly because we've got the challenge starting on the 9th of January, I feel like I will be very clean inside and out and ready to be with, 2,000 to 3,000 people and take them through this process, which I'm super psyched about.
Well, you've taken so many through the process. I've taken your challenge, and I've known so many who've been helped by it. And for people that don't know, Andrew Mellen is a regular presenter at Rancho La Puerta, which is where I met him. I even had a private session with him to propel me into full gear for finally and ultimately decluttering my life, or as he likes to say, de-stressing my mess. And he's going to be there for my group on July 1st through 8th. Unfortunately, guys, it's sold out, but we have another one in August, but Andrew won't be there. So you snooze, you lose.
Yeah, so let's, we'll talk about the challenge. We'll talk about New Year's resolutions. I was doing a Facebook Live yesterday, I think. Just reading social media is such a funny thing, right? People opining, I don't believe in New Year's resolutions, as if they're Santa Claus, like they don't exist. They exist. You might not choose to do them, which is fine, but they do exist. So the idea of I don't believe in them, it's the way that we talk about things, and it so ties into all of our mindset stuff, right? I mean, how we talk to ourselves informs what we do or what we don't do. You can talk yourself into something, you can talk yourself out of something. Also, because we are promoting the challenge on Facebook, any number of people, for the thousands of people that are signing up, right? There's all the people who are like, oh, well, I would totally do this, but. And you just wonder, how, if people only thought about what they were saying to themselves before they actually said it, you're deliberately removing yourself from the possibility of doing something when you talk to yourself and talk to other people like that. I don't know if people think that they're being clever or they're being funny or, sort of arch or wry or sarcastic, but I'll be there on January the 9th, and I don't need to de-stress my mess. I don't have a mess, right? But I'm there in service of all the people that are showing up. And if the idea of de-stressing your mess at this time of the year or any time of the year seems appealing to you, why would you then cut yourself off at the knees, metaphorically, and say, oh, I would totally do this, but the timing isn't great for me, or I work the second shift. I got some comment from some woman who said, this isn't good for people in Central Europe. I said, yes, I understand. there's however many time zones there are in the world, as we move around the planet, right, it will never be good for somebody. I'm sorry that the folks in Central Europe, it's not great timing for them. And many people in Central Europe participate in the challenge and they just watch the replays. And a few diehards get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's, I always reference this again when we think about mindset. If you're just falling in love with somebody, you will do anything to spend time with that person. If it really matters to you, you would crawl through broken glass to hang out with them for another 30 minutes, right? It's so where there is a will, there is a way. If you want to set yourself free, if you want to, stop eating garbage, if you want to declutter your life, you'll show up and do the work. And if not, you'll complain about it as if somehow the transformation isn't available to you. And I, as you know, and I mean, we are so aligned around this, the transformation is available for everybody. This is an equal opportunity transformation. You do not need to be super smart. You don't need to be super talented. You just have to be super willing. And really, you don't even need to be super willing. You just need to be willing enough to be willing, and something will happen for you. You just have to be in the room. You got to show up.
Yep, absolutely. I feel that it's the same thing when people are making dietary or lifestyle changes. They always say, well, it's just not a good time. The only time you have is now. It's never going to be a better time.
I mean, God forbid you drop dead tomorrow. I guess you ran out of time. So, today is the only day that you have available. Why would you put off something that you say is important to you? Because then it's either not important to you, or you got to get out of your own way. Because I mean, you can't have it both ways. It can't be important to you, but not important enough for you to actually implement. And I get that people are stuck. Sometimes they're overwhelmed. They don't know, like there's so many choices. Where do I begin? I'm sure you get that all the time. And where you begin is you show up. I mean, particularly if you're offering them an opportunity, if I'm offering them an opportunity, it couldn't be simpler. You just have to show up on January the 9th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'll show you where to start. So you could bring the overwhelm. I've dealt with the overwhelm. You'll be fine. We'll address the overwhelm and then we'll get you started. It doesn't matter if you're willing to do the work. Again, if you just got to show up.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things when I worked with people in wanting to change their diet, they often have resistance from their family members, spouses, or children who don't want to eat healthy. And it makes it very difficult for the person that wants a clean environment. And I see this the same thing with decluttering, where one member of the family wants a nice, neat environment and the others don't. Do you teach at all how to navigate a mixed relationship?
Oh, yeah. I call it stuff discordance. And yeah, we actually, I have a whole class at Unstuff University called How to Stop Fighting About Stuff. It's a 90-minute class that folks can take if they're in a stuff discordant relationship. And we certainly cover it in the challenge. And I will say that if you are in a stuff discordant relationship and you want a nice, clean home, you can have a nice, clean home. You can work around the person who doesn't want to be organized. They don't get to decide the entire house, right? I mean, that's the glass half empty mindset, the defeated mindset of, well, I would totally do this, but he's the problem, or she's the problem, or they're the problem. You live with them. They can't be the problem. If it's that big of a problem, you should live not with them. And if it isn't that big of a problem, there is a way to negotiate. And for you to take care of yourself, it's just so silly to, objectively. I understand when you're in it, it feels totally acute and intense and unresolvable. But objectively, it's really just a matter of you taking the steps to take care of yourself and building an organized home for yourself. Just like negotiating any other part of a relationship, you don't have to give away all of your happiness and security and comfort because you're in a relationship with somebody who doesn't value the same things you do.
Yeah. What do you think the people that are resistant to cleaning up, what do you think it is? And do you think, it's partly genetic that some people just don't mind living in squalor?
I don't think it's genetic. I think it's more nurture than nature in that sense. I think they grew up with it. I don't think there's one flavor, right? So I think sometimes it's self-esteem, sometimes it's the environment that they grow up in, sometimes it's a degree of asserting some people feel so disempowered that it's the only way they feel that they can assert themselves is by being I don't want to say disrespectful of themselves, but there is something about like not valuing their own well-being enough to take care of themselves. And, there's no judgment there when I say that. But I think that there's something there around this is good enough, or it's not that important. And it might not be that important, except in those moments when you can't find your car keys, or you can't find your mobile phone, or you can't find an important document. In those moments, it's important, right? But then we go back to that place where it's good enough. It's good enough. I want to do other things. And for me, really getting on the other side of the whole process, it's relatively, once you get organized, it's relatively easy to maintain organization. And we've talked about this before as well, right? So I think that people view the obstacle of getting organized as the big problem, not recognizing that once you get over that hurdle or that hump, maintaining organization, putting things back where they came from, doesn't really take any more time than just dropping them on the kitchen counter and walking past them. So some of the resistance to getting organized comes from what they think staying organized is going to require. And it doesn't actually require that much.
Do you think, because, we've talked about this and I was on your wonderful podcast, and I'll put a link to it below in the chat and in the show notes. I feel like weight loss and maintenance, meaning keeping the weight off, are two distinctly different processes, and that most people have lost weight and can lose weight. Where the rubber meets the road is most people can't keep it off. Do you feel that decluttering and maintaining that state of decluttering are different processes, or are they one and the same?
Well, I think there are two parts. I think one is dealing with historic accumulation, right? Or like the weight, but perhaps differently than the weight. Partly we have to eat, right? We don't necessarily have to have clutter, but we do have to eat. So when you're presented with all of the different options of like, what could I put in my mouth? It's in some ways every day is a fresh day of, okay, I could put trash in my mouth, or I could put really nutritious, simple food in my mouth. What's it going to be? And is it going to be some combination of the two of them? In the decluttering arena, you always have the choice of putting things back in their homes or just dropping them wherever you are. One of the ways that we work with folks to remind them that it takes the same amount of time. So if you just hang your keys up when you walk in the door instead of dropping them on the counter, they'll be right where you want them to be when you're ready for them,
I agree. It's just a habit, and I agree, because it actually, I think, takes less time if you just take the time to do it now, because when you wait to do it later, like making your bed, it just kind of hangs over and puts a cloud on the whole day. And then it just adds to the to-do list. And that's where my husband and I disagree, because he goes, you can't do it now. And I'm like, it's better to do it now. He just does and he's such a procrastinator, and it drives me crazy. Luckily, he's not home. So now he probably not going to watch this episode. So, Oh, yeah. But he did read your book, or we both actually listened to it. And I listened to it at Rancho right after I met you, and he listened. He's making some changes, but he's not quite.
Yeah. I mean, everybody does it at their own pace, right? I mean, it's the path to the mountain is rich and varied, and we just hope that people get on the path. I long ago gave up, not worrying, but fretting over people's process. We talk all the time in the unstuffed world about channeling your inner tortoise. It took you as long as it took you to get messy. It's going to take you as long as it takes you to get organized. And it's really sort of none of your business, right? I mean, You weren't keeping track or keeping score as the stuff piled up. You really have no business trying to keep score on the way out. It'll be finished when it's finished. And in the meantime, put your head down, do the work, do the next right thing, and you'll get where you want to go. It's a much simpler way to go than constantly evaluating, am I there yet? Am I there yet? You'll be there. You'll know it when you're there. And until then, just do the work. So it's a much simpler way. And for me as a coach, and as somebody who doesn't have clutter in their life, I let go a long time ago of worrying if people were living the way they wanted to live. My job as a coach is to support them in making incremental progress and not also being, getting myself into a knot of like, oh, they're not doing it right, or they're not doing it enough. They're doing it, and they'll make progress. And, it's like, I'm just thinking of like an old Yiddish expression that my grandmother would say, right? Like, it's just, it'll be done when it's done, and it's just leave it be, rather than, I don't need to get myself in a knot. If they're making progress, they're making progress. It's good enough.
Did you ever have a struggle with clutter? You're a Virgo, right? So
quadruple Virgo.
Yeah, so I think you probably are the most organized man in America.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't pay attention to things that I didn't care about. And so the process for me has been about eliminating the things that I don't care about so that I'm only surrounded by things that I do care about. So because I moved so often, when I was working in the theater, I would move probably every 2 or 3 years. And I just got tired of schlepping stuff with me. I had all those scripts, I had lots of albums, and I just got tired of moving things. So I figured I digitized myself as quickly as I could so that I didn't have physical things to move around with me. And that's been the process. I'm not a minimalist, I'm an essentialist. So I have things, but I only have things that actually serve me. I don't have things, which doesn't mean that I don't have art. I actually have quite a robust art collection because I like art and it inspires me, and it makes me happy to look at it and interact with it. I just don't have a lot of superfluous things laying around.
I hear you. It's sort of like, I see so many parallels between our work, because there are people that have suffered from excess weight their whole lives, and they don't know what it's like not to have that weight. But when they don't have it, they're so much happier, and they don't want to go back. And it's the same thing for people living, in a clutter zone. They get used to it. They get comfortable, I suppose. But once you're living in a non-cluttered zone, you don't want to go back to living in a cluttered zone.
There's so much more room to think and be creative and, present for your life. You're not, the mess eats up bandwidth. And so it's, again, one of those things that we really encourage folks to think about when they're making those choices is, you have limited bandwidth. Do you want to burn through some of it every day by just navigating clutter? You can tell yourself, oh, it doesn't really negatively impact me. But I'll bet if we actually timed how long it took you to do things and how long it took you to find things, we'd find that there was wasted time there, and you would probably want to use that time for something else. If you knew that if you were very clear that I am making a choice of where I'm putting my attention, when we break it down and make it that simple of a math equation, suddenly people go, oh, well, no, I don't want to spend 15 minutes doing that if I could only spend 3 minutes doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see if there's any questions in the chat. If there are, just put a few question marks first. Here's an interesting question. Do you know people that were organized and then prior to a traumatic event that they experienced, and then they became more habitually disorganized?
Yes, there's plenty of people in our overall community who have had that experience, and often people. I hear from people who say, "Oh, I used to be so organized, and then my mom died," or "I used to be so organized, and then this happened. I got a divorce, or something happened." And again, I think in those moments of retracting and turning inward and trying to heal from the trauma and take care of oneself, sometimes the exterior world falls away, right? And it just starts to pile up. In an ideal world, we are caring for our interior life while also maintaining a certain amount of exterior organization, knowing that that actually fosters a faster healing process.
Great. Randy's saying, Andrew, can you say it in Yiddish?
Oh, no, I was trying to think of what the saying was. It's like, it's not like sei gesund, but there's something, my grandmother used to say something about like, just leave people alone, right? They'll take care of it.
Is it, no, it's not Luzergain, is it? Luzergain.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay, all right.
And something that I thought was Yiddish that wasn't Yiddish is my grandmother used to always say, if we live in all's well. And I thought that that was a Yiddish expression, but because she would say it so fast that it sounded like it was Yiddish, but it's actually, if we live and all's well.
Yeah, something like, you ever heard of Gamzula Tova?
No, I have not.
That's a good one. I don't really remember most of this. Anyway, I'm trying to look it up in Yiddish. I can't remember. I don't know anybody that speaks Yiddish anymore. Carla, who's watching live, says, in addition to your challenges, do you ever do private consultations with people in person or on Zoom?
The answer to that is yes. I mean, I do have a few private clients that I see either on Zoom or in their homes. Yes.
Okay.
If you're interested in learning more about that, you can send an email to hello@andrewmellen.com, and Mellen is just spelled MELLEN.com. So send an email to hello@andrewmellen.com, and somebody on the team will get with you and talk to you about what the options are for one-to-one work.
I had one and it was great, but I still haven't resolved my Scooby collection. Nobody wants the whole thing, and I don't want to break it up and put it on eBay, but it's the one sore spot in my life. My house is so beautiful, and it's so, I mean, I
can't wait to see it when I'm in California.
Yes, please. Well, you just don't go into my husband's room, but everything else, because we made a deal, you know, you do you, I do me, as long as my shared areas. But every time I go in the garage, even though it's organized, it's like, Scooby, you got to go. You know, I've let you go emotionally. Now I need to let you go physically.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, and so, right, it's not a story, but it's a story, right? You've got the story that I don't want to break it up, which is understandable, but because of that, you're stuck in it. So you'll either break it up or you'll live with it until you find the right home. And that's the trade-off, right? Is that you'll have to live with it because you have you've created something for yourself that's non-negotiable.
Okay, I'll break it up. I will break it up. I guess what I mean by that is I physically don't have the time to go through the boxes, and I mean, so it's not that emotionally I won't break it up. I will break it up. I just need then somebody to be
that's a task rabbit. You just need to hire a task rabbit to come over, and if you tell them what to do, then they'll go in the garage and do it for you.
Yeah, no, I will. I'm really ready to let it go, and it's not even about money. I mean, I was hoping a museum would take it, but
I know. So was I. I was hoping that.
I'm going to try Warner Brothers one more time, because that would be the logic. I'm not giving up completely there. I feel like maybe something's going to happen this year. This will be my year to let the Scooby go. Yeah. Oh yeah. You got a big bell. I got a little bell. So Angela's saying, I need to declutter so much. You got $1, Angela? 4 quarters? Then take the De-Stress Your Mess challenge and you will get all the tools you need. So Jennifer says, can it also just be someone's personality and being lazy or overwhelmed that makes them a mess cat?
Well, so curiously, right, like lazy or overwhelmed, they're not quite the same thing, right? I mean, are people lazy? Some people are lazy. Some people aren't that engaged. So I think that could be a personality thing. For me, right, like, I don't know that I'd want to be in a relationship with somebody who was not really engaged in living their life. If they're that passive and that, not even laissez-faire, but just that disinterested or that disconnected from their environment, that they don't really care, I wouldn't want to spend a lot of time in the same space with them, which isn't to say that they don't have a lot of other redeeming qualities, but when it comes to cohabitation, I couldn't live with somebody who was that checked out or that disconnected about their environment. So, and I wouldn't put lazy and overwhelmed in the same category, right? Overwhelmed is a temporary state. It's easy enough to get out of being overwhelmed. If we're talking about lazy as some sort of character defect or some sort of character quality, that they're consistently lazy, meaning they're consistently not really interested in expending much energy to do much. That's different than if I had the information and some accountability, I would do the behavior. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I'm curious because you love art. I love art. Do you have any favorite artists? Because I have two on my walls, and I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours.
Oh, well, sure. Tabitha Vevers is one of my favorite artists. She is exceptional. I used to run an art center in Washington, D.C. So many of the artists that are on my home are friends of mine. Joyce Ellen Weinstein, Sam Gilliam, who is no longer with us, was on the board of the art center that I ran in Washington, D.C. Who else is on my wall? My friend Caroline Landon. She's an amazing artist. Stephen Kenny is a new artist that I found in St. Petersburg, Florida. He's an amazing artist. Who else is on the walls? Wendy McNaughton, Renee Stout. I'm drawing a blank. She's a wonderful artist. I have a nest with an egg in it. She's a Santa Fe artist, and I'm so sorry that I'm drawing a blank. I think her first name is Angelica. I just can't think of what her last name is. I'm so sorry. My friend Ileana Gomez. Who else is on the walls? Barry Swimmer. I have two photographs from Barry Swimmer. So.
Yeah, I know you're out of town right now, but do you ever show people your home and how nice it is? And meaning in Decluttered?
Oh, well, I mean, I do during the Unstuff Your Life system, which is, we don't really do it during the De-Stress Your Mess challenge. Well, actually, no, I do show some photos of my home during the challenge. But several years ago, the UK Daily Mail came to my apartment in Manhattan, and there's a big spread. So if you want to see what my apartment looks like, you can, if you Google Andrew Mellen Daily Mail, UK Daily Mail, you'll find they did a big spread. It came out on Thanksgiving several years ago. So, and
I'd love to see your art. Have you ever heard of my favorite artist, Leonid Afremov?
No, I have not.
Yeah, if you like bright colors, he's amazing. Unfortunately, he died during the pandemic, but that's all my walls are Leonid Afremov. They had a great sale on Black Friday. Oh my God. Anyway, I'll shoot you some pictures.
Yeah,
it's just, I'm so in love with it. And Justin Cooper Smith is my second favorite artist. Hopefully he's not watching to hear that he only made, but he's alive, so he could actually become number one. So have you ever heard this quote posted by Sherry? Renowned designer William Morris said, "Have nothing in your home that you do not know to be useful or believe to be beautiful."
No, I don't know that, but I often say, have only things around you that make your life more comfortable, convenient, or beautiful. So, I mean, it's the same idea. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Here's a question from a live viewer named Gail. Is this much more difficult for people that have ADD?
Yeah, in the way that some other things are difficult for people with ADHD or ADD. Concentration is a challenge for you consistently, whatever you're doing. So there are some challenges to getting and staying organized if you have ADHD. And we have so many people in our programs who have ADHD, who are neurodivergent in some way. And without sounding like a pompous douchebag, the way that I teach and the way that we do this work actually seems to work for folks who are neurodivergent, because it is very simple and it's very easy to do in super small bits, so that you can stay focused long enough for 30 seconds, for a minute, for 2 minutes, for 3 minutes, and actually make progress. So there can be challenges for folks who are neurodivergent, and I think we have a good recipe for dealing with that.
That is a new word to me, neurodivergent. I love it. And speaking of that, Mellen says, so is it okay to declutter every day for, say, 15 to 30 minutes a day if you have a lot of clutter?
It is perfectly okay to do it, and it's actually preferred. Rather than just saving up and trying to do it over the weekends, the more consistent you are, it's like compound interest at the bank, right? If you do a little bit every day, you will see greater results quicker than if you don't do it, and then do a big push, and then don't do it, and then do a big push.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing. You don't want to you don't want to go on a diet. You want to eat right every day, or
Right,
as many days as possible. Babette, who's watching live, says she has lots of stuff from deceased relatives. It's hard for people to sometimes let stuff go, isn't it, when has an emotional attachment?
Well, sure. We talk all the time about story, and which is not pejorative in any way, right? But just the story of where it came from, and that sense of obligation. Sometimes it's guilt, sometimes it's shame, sometimes it's a soup of all of those feelings. And it's a place where people can get stuck, most definitely. And going back to the idea of comfort, convenience, and beauty, it's sad that the people are gone. The things are in your home. If they don't serve you, you don't need to keep them. If you want to swap your grandmother's toaster for your toaster, you can do that. You don't need to keep grandma's toaster. If you have a nicer, newer toaster that you like and use, and grandma's toaster is not a particularly good toaster, you don't need to hold on to it just because it was grandma's. It isn't grandma, it's just a toaster, right? Often we conflate the dead people with the objects. And then we think like, well, I can't get rid of this. It's like throwing my grandmother in the garbage or giving my grandmother to the Goodwill. It's not. It feels like it, but it isn't actually the same thing. The toaster isn't your grandmother. The painting isn't your uncle. The book isn't your father. The napkin isn't your mom. The pair of shoes isn't your brother. We have to learn to separate the story from these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if there's any more questions. So tell us a little bit about when the challenge starts, how it's delivered. I've been posting the link in the chat and the show notes.
Oh, great. Okay, so the challenge starts on Monday, January the 9th, and it runs through the 13th, Friday night, 5 nights. Every night we meet from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern time in the US. So you can do the math on where that is in whatever time zone you live in. We're there for an hour. We open the doors 15 minutes early so we can kibitz and hang out with each other. And it's nice to know where everybody's tuning in from, because we have people all over the world tuning in. So it's nice to just get that sense of who's in the room with us. And every night is a different clutter hotspot. So the first night we really focus on your mindset, and we'll also look at papers and filing and setting up some basic systems so that you can run your home. The second night we go into the kitchen. No, the second night we go into clothes and closets. Third night we go into the kitchen. Fourth night we go into sentimental objects. So that's where, your deceased relative stuff, all of the things that have story and attachment. We talk about that. On day 5, we talk about the 3 things that you are doing that are most likely undermining your best efforts and your best intentions to get and stay organized. And they're never what people think they are. And so they're, we can, for shorthand, we can call them the 3 secrets, right? The 3 secrets that I know, because I've been doing this work for 26 plus years, that a lot of people don't know, and they end up creating these roadblocks or tripping themselves up unconsciously because they don't know them. So that's always a great night, is Friday night. As I said, as you said, and as I've said, right, it costs $1 to join. And if you can't be with us live, it's always best if you can be with us live, just like if you're with us live on this video. But of course, because of time zones and work and other obligations, not everybody can be there for the entire challenge. Not everybody can be there for 1 or more nights. every session is recorded. The recordings get posted probably about 90 minutes after we've completed the session. So then you can watch them 24/7 all the way through June 20th. So the challenge runs from the 9th through the 13th, but we leave the videos up for an entire week after that. That's what you get for your $1 registration. If you want forever access to the recordings, you can buy that for, I think it's another $19, and then you can have them beyond the 20th of January. You can have them for as long as you want, and they're still available 24/7. So you have two choices. When you're checking out, there's a one-time offer box. You can check the box and check out, and then you get the forever access. And if you don't want it, you just have to pay the buck. $1 one time. We don't store credit cards. So this isn't a hidden subscription. You're not going to get hit from us in 30 days with another $30 charge or something. We don't do that. And in fact, again, we don't have access to your credit card information. It's run through either the credit card processor or PayPal. So we don't even know what your credit card is to be able to charge you again. And the dollar is for you. The dollar is not for me. I mean, particularly when we talk about PayPal, right? I net 48 cents of the dollar that you paid. They keep 52 cents. So I'm not getting rich on your dollar. The dollar is there because we discovered, this is our 9th time doing this challenge. And we discovered early on when we first launched the challenge, 10,000 people would sign up and 2,000 people would show up. What happened to the 8,000 people who raised their hand and said, clutter's a problem for me, right? They didn't have any skin in the game, so they didn't show up. So we decided that if we made people pay the buck, the beautiful thing about human psychology is that whether we charge you $1 or we charge you $50, if you have any money on the table, you are 3 times or more likely to show up than if you have no stake in showing up. So we stopped doing the free challenge because it was just too easy for people to blow off. So, you know, and I'm being completely transparent. I'm not, you should know that this is our loving way of holding you accountable and manipulating you into showing up. Because again, I'm not doing the challenge for me. I don't need to de-stress my mess. I'm doing the challenge as a way to help people set themselves free. So it doesn't serve me if nobody's in the room. I benefit, you benefit. It's a win-win situation.
Have you ever seen a movie? It was a play first by playwright Del Shores called Daddy's Dying, Who Got the Will? It featured the wonderful actor that recently passed, Leslie Jordan.
Oh, no, I did not.
Well, it's actually hilarious, but there is a line in the movie that I remember where he was being forced to see a psychiatrist, and she was saying, you're not participating in your own recovery. And the reason I say that line is, like, I'm sure that there are rich people that would probably want to hire you to, clean their houses, and to declutter their houses. And maybe you do it, maybe you don't. But if somebody doesn't participate in the process, does it stick? Or is it like gastric bypass when you do it? Like,
yeah. So when I go into a private client's home, I work with them as intimately as possible. When I first started this work 26, 27 years ago, it was a very much do it for you job because I was providing a service and I was grateful to have work. And that was the trade, is that I did it and you benefited from it. And I just learned very early on that was not sustainable. It wasn't sustainable for my clients and it wasn't sustainable for me. I didn't want them to be dependent on me, that if I wasn't maintaining the organization, they weren't organized. So I started to shift how I work with private clients for it to be as participatory and as educational as possible. So, that the Jesus quote of like, give me a fish, I eat for a day, right? Teach me to fish, I eat for a lifetime. I am more interested in teaching you how to fish because I don't want you to be dependent on me, that if you're going to go hungry if I don't give you a fish tomorrow. It shouldn't be that way. It's much better for me that you know what you're doing and you can maintain the organization long after I've left your home.
That makes sense. Remember Babette, who said that, she had memories and people that were, or she had a lot of things from deceased people. And she said, but they have memories. Memories are here. They're not in the toaster, honestly.
Exactly. That is so accurate, right? I mean, you use them right now, Babette, as a touchstone to keep the memories alive. but they're really, those memories are in you. So you could take a picture of the toaster and you'd still be able to access the memory of your grandmother or your aunt making you toast in the morning and spreading blackberry jam on it, right? I mean, that sensory experience and memory is available to you whether you have the physical toaster or not, whether you have the butter knife or not. You can still access all of those feelings. And in fact, what I have discovered through doing this work is that when we make the object, when we fetishize the object and make the object responsible for keeping the memory alive, if something happens to the object, we're more at risk of losing the memory because we've in fact abdicated our own responsibility for keeping the memory alive, right? So if we think about my grandmother, I could hold on to a bunch of things that used to be in her house, or I could bake her poppy seed cookie recipe and share that with people, right? That's a way that keeps her memory alive and palpable and experiential. It's a much more meaningful way for me to share my grandmother with you and for me to access my feelings and fondness for her than just, picking up an item that used to live in her house.
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to read you this nice comment from a live viewer named Karen. Andrew, not only are you an honest man, you are brutally honest when it comes to educating all of us in de-stressing our messes. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Karen. Thank you.
And Kathy says, Andrew, do you have methods to organize art supplies without getting rid of them?
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Can you share, or they got to take the challenge?
Well, I mean, we don't really cover it in the challenge. I mean, the short answer is, so the organizational triangle, one home for everything, like with like, something in, something out. One home for everything and like with like are how we get organized. Something in, something out is how we stay organized. So when we think about your art supplies, it's just like with like. Paintbrushes go with paintbrushes, pastels go with pastels, oils go with oils, acrylics go with acrylics, and on and on. So if you just apply the organizational triangle, one home for everything, all acrylics live together. You can break them up into subcategories if you want to do them by shades and colors and things like that. But ultimately, acrylics with acrylics, watercolors with watercolors, again, pastels with pastels, brushes with brushes, pencils with pencils. It's not very complicated. If you don't have enough room for all of your art supplies, my suggestion to you is make art, right? If you don't want to get rid of the art supplies, stop buying art supplies and make more art. Because what's the point of stockpiling the supplies if you're always going to have more than you need to actually do the work? So often, artists love to think of themselves, and with love, Karen, or whoever asked this question, right?
Yeah, Kathy. And Kathy's actually coming to see you at Rancho.
Oh, awesome. Right. So with love, when I say this, right, artists like to think that they're special, that they have special needs around, well, we interact with stuff differently because it's all, fodder for our imagination and our creativity, as if everybody isn't creative. Not everybody's making art, but everybody's a creative being. And you don't have a corner on the market of having attachment to things. But so often artists spend more time accumulating materials than actually making the work. And so I encourage every artist that I work with, whether I do it, through one of the programs or I'm working one-to-one with an artist as a client, is make the work. Run out of the art supplies, then you can go buy more, right? You'll still be able to buy burnt sienna at the art supply store when you run out of the tube of burnt sienna. So use up the paint and then let's worry about getting more. You don't need to, just because it's on sale, it's not a bargain if you don't need it. You just spent money that you didn't need to spend for a tube of paint that's sitting in your studio that you're not using. So be mindful of the choices that you're making. Just because something looks like it's inexpensive or it's on sale, if you don't need it, it's still money that is leaving your pocket and going to somebody else's. And now you have more of something than you necessarily need in any given moment.
Babette's saying, I've signed up. How will I be able to join on Monday? Do they maybe get a link at some point or something?
Yeah, so Babette, thank you for signing up. As soon as you get your receipt for signing up, The link for the success page is on that receipt, and you'll also get a welcome email, and the link to the success page is on that email as well. So go to the success page. There's like everything that you need to know about the challenge is there. The Zoom link is there, how to get on Zoom, how to whitelist our emails, how to opt in for text messages. Everything that you need to know about the challenge is on that success page. And the team did an amazing job building the success page. So that link will be there for you.
Thanks. How do you recommend storing things that are only used once a year? Like, for example, like I personally, I don't celebrate Christmas, but I mean, like people that have Christmas supplies, you're probably not recommending. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
Seasonal decorations. Yeah.
Yeah, because you probably don't recommend they throw it out and buy new ones every year.
No. So what I like to do with specifically with Christmas decorations, right? And then we'll just talk about general seasonal decor. But again, like with like, so Christmas ornaments go with Christmas ornaments, wreaths go with wreaths, candlesticks go with candlesticks, stockings go with stockings, and put them in a tub and label them whatever holiday they belong to, and then store them someplace. So as you're putting them away in a way that allows you to do an inventory. If anything broke and you want to replace it, or you're fine not replacing it, you want to be actively involved in putting them away and then storing them someplace and making sure that the container is properly labeled so you know what's in them. Lots of people have various seasonal decor, and it's fine to swap it out. Again, if you have more than you have room for, you have two choices. You either need more room or you need fewer things. It's very simple. The space is doing an excellent job of informing whether you should let go of stuff or hold on to it. And you might have feelings about that, but ultimately, again, it's pretty simple.
Nice. So the reason I asked that question is I do a vision board once a year, and I don't want to throw out the magazines because that's kind of environmentally wasteful. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but it's okay to have something like that you use once a year, as long as it's organized and put like.
Yeah, I would just throw it in a tub and call it vision board materials, right? Yeah. And then when you're ready to make the next vision board, you'll go there and start digging around. And if you find that you've cut up the magazine so much that there's no more good pictures, then that goes in the recycle bin.
Exactly.
It's not, you don't have to start from scratch every year.
Good. Yeah, I didn't think so. So when with books, do you recommend alphabetical order for books?
I think alphabetical order of titles of books or authors of books is fine if that works for you.
How do you organize your books if not alphabetically by order or title?
I have them by genre.
Oh, so, interesting.
Because like I want my self-help spiritual books all together, so that if I want a book on meditation, they're all next to each other. If I want a book on art, all of the art books are together. If I want a book on finance, all the finance books are together. If I want a book on business growth, all the business growth books are together. The category is what is more important to me than the author. Because in some cases, I won't necessarily remember if I didn't meet the author or the author didn't make an impression on me, but the book made an impression on me, I'd be more likely to remember, oh, that's the book that has the information on online marketing. And I don't necessarily remember who the author was.
But in the categories, then do you do them alphabetically by title once you have your categories?
Then I do the titles. I don't do author, like bookstores do author because that's how they're selling them, right? So that you could find Anne Rice under the R's and you could find, Stephen King under the K's, so that because they're selling the books, they're not a library, right? So they're typically you go into a book to find a book by the author, but you could just say, oh, I'm looking for a book on vegan cooking, and they would send you to the food section, and then in the food section into the vegan section, and then probably there you would look through all the different titles and see who's written a book that speaks to you that you want to pick up and buy. So in my world, I organize by category, and then within that by title, because the title is more likely what I'm going to reach for than the book by Russell Brunson.
Got it. You know, I used to organize my book by color because it was so pretty, but then I couldn't find any.
It makes no sense.
It made no sense. So I actually did them alphabetically. And since most of my books are on the same topic, it wasn't a problem. Here's an interesting question from a live viewer. How do we quickly teach our children to be more organized before they move out if we set a suboptimal example when they were growing up?
Yeah. So teach them the organizational triangle. One home for everything, like with like, and something in, something out, and go over it with them. And what you could do, depending on how quickly they're moving out, you could start to implement the organizational triangle with them in their room as a way of teaching them and building some muscle so that as they leave, they're better equipped to be able to go do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Babette says she did join the challenge, but can she decide sometime during the 5 days whether she wants to permanently own the recordings? Or does she have to
totally
decide right now?
So to be clear, right, and just to be completely transparent, the one-time offer is the cheapest you'll buy the recordings for. I think they're more money if you buy them later. So that's just like everything else. I mean, it's to incentivize you to buy it up front, so we know that we've sold it. And if you want to buy it later, you certainly can buy it later. I think you'll just pay more money. So.
Okay, terrific. Do you cover things like, email? Like, I mean, it's not clutter in the same physical sense, but boy, do you teach about us how to get through our inboxes?
Yeah, so not during the 5-day challenge, because we have 5 nights and I have 5 hours with you. So we do have a 10-week program called the Unstuff Your Life System. And in that, we actually have 2 weeks modules just dealing with digital disorganization and clutter. So 1 week we deal just with hardware. So literally the machines, the phones, the computers, the tablets, printers, all of the cables, all of the things. And then the second week we deal with how to use them. So we look at apps, we look at email, we look at digital filing, all of those kinds of things. And that's during the Unstuff Your Life system. So if that's, and I also specifically around digital organizing, at Unstuff University, at my website, we have a class called Mastering Your Digital Life. So I think for $97, you can buy that class, and that's a 90-minute class, and that'll teach you that. And if that price point is a challenge for somebody, there's an entire chapter in my book, Unstuff Your Life, dedicated to email and digital organizing.
Here's a fun question from Jesse. What was the most satisfying decluttering project Andrew ever did?
It's funny, and I'm going to answer. I'm going to attempt to answer the question, but I have a dear friend named Tina Sabuco, who loves superlatives and loves, like, what was your favorite part of that? And she will always ask that question. And by now, I mean, we've known each other. We went to college together, so we've known each other for quite some time. She knows no longer to ask me that question because I don't tend to focus on things of like, this is my favorite. I tend to like whatever I'm doing. And that's my favorite for now until I do something else. And then that will be my favorite. I don't tend to have like only one thing, right? Like that. I'm just not wired that way. But I will say that when we think about satisfying projects, I helped a client clean out his deceased mother's house in Chicago. They lived in New York, and they flew me out to Chicago I spent a week working by myself in the house. I hired some temporary help while I was there, but I basically went and broke apart the house, packed up some stuff to ship to them, donated a bunch of stuff, gave a bunch of stuff away, ended up throwing away what was actually garbage. That was a fun project. I organized somebody's art collection once, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah, so, the adventure of solving the puzzle is different, and at the same time it's similar because I have no attachment to any of this stuff. So being able to sort through it and sift through it is always curious to me because I get to see like where do people get snagged and where is the story and why do people hold on to certain things? So I hope that's a satisfactory answer to the question.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Yeah, no trouble coming up with your favorite artist, though.
Well, they're in my home,
Yeah,
right?
sure. Got it.
Yeah.
All
And as
right.
much as I love Tabitha, right, I would say that Van Gogh is probably my favorite artist.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, which is your favorite Van Gogh painting? And did you do the immersive experience?
I did do the immersive experience, and I don't know that I have a favorite Van Gogh painting.
Oh,
I
I do.
love.
Can you guess my two favorites? Because I have my whole house.
I don't know. Is it the Potato Eaters?
No, it is my first favorite is Irises, and my second is Starry Night.
Okay. I love Crows in a Wheat Field. And I'm particularly moved by his self-portraits. So there isn't one that is my favorite. I literally was moved to tears multiple times in the Van Gogh Museum when I was there. And I actually touched Crows in a Wheat Field until a guard came over and said, "You're not supposed to touch the paintings, sir."
Oh my goodness, yeah.
But I felt such a communion with him. I literally had to touch the painting because it was so powerful being in the same room with it.
He was amazing. What was your what city did you see the immersive experience at?
In St. Petersburg, in Florida.
And did you do the bonus part where you had to pay a little bit more for the virtual experience?
I don't know. There was I will say that the production values were not exceptional. Having worked in the theater professionally for 20 years, I didn't love the production values. I mean, I was very happy to do the thing, but it wasn't amazing. I'm looking at the time and I realize that I have to be on Clubhouse in a minute.
Okay, well, we'll get off anyway. There was one more question. I don't know if you can answer it really quickly. Any wisdom on dealing when the family, when finally get rid of something and then of course you need it, you just buy another?
Yeah, I mean, look, what are the odds? It might happen. You just have to accept it and move on. There's no point. The choice of keeping everything in case you might need it someday is not the antidote to I got rid of something and then 6 months later or 3 weeks later, I needed it. It may happen. I'm not going to lie to you. It may happen. The odds are not in your favor that that's going to keep happening. So you could tell yourself a story that that's going to happen over and over again, but it's not real. So.
All right. Well, sorry about that. Didn't know you had to go. And thank you so much, Andrew. I will see you in July at Rancho La Puerta.
Well,
good luck with the challenge.
Thanks, my friend. I love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
Be well. And I'll see everybody on January the 9th. Bye.
Right. Take care. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow at 11 a.m. when we have plant-based dermatologist Jessica Krant answering